All right, good morning, everyone. It's dark out now. Fall is here. Welcome to late October.
Gonna be meeting in the dark soon.
Yes, yes. All right, let's take a look at the minutes from October 4th.
These are really good, I think.
They're, yes,
Glad you enjoy them.
Yeah. Sounds like they're famous.
They've been around the block a few times. The only comment I have is on the Jacob Krantz parcel. I think you've got some syntax error going on there. Simon said at the meeting with Global Foundries on potential access to Jacob Krantz had from
gone
their
well.
parcel gone well.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, 7.3.
I'll amend that.
Did we get many signups for the Wilson 2050 events?
Yeah, I think they're over, I think they're just over 100 now. The first one is tomorrow, and that's full capacity at the Federal Church. That's 40 people. Then the ones on Saturday, so 28th and the 4th, aren't doing as well as the ones on Thursdays. But there's still space on the 28th and I think the 9th, and plenty of space on the 28th and the 4th. If people can sign up.
And were you looking for members of the Conservation Commission to attend those?
Yeah. So everyone really needs to sign up for one.
Okay.
I know Laura and Terry are going tomorrow. I think Reed said you're doing Finney,
Yeah, which is, okay, which date the thing one is?
the 9th.
November 9th.
Yeah, it's at the library on the 28th of October. That's a Saturday in the afternoon, and then the rec zone in Harvest Lane on the 4th. And then there's also a couple of online versions that Emily's going to be hosting on November the 14th. So it's a shorter sessions.
All right. And I know you sent an email out about that somewhere.
Yeah, so if you just Google Wilson 2050.
They're cable captains from October 4th. Yeah.
How many tables are there per event?
It depends on how many people we get.
Okay.
So we're at capacity tomorrow, so we're doing 7.
Wow.
Then like if there's if there's just 20 people, we'll probably do like 4.
Like 5-ish people
yeah.
per group, I think
Yeah.
as a captain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sign up genius. I had not heard of that one.
So, I'll move to approve the minutes.
I had one other sentence in the first sentence in the capital budget and operating budget. I think it should read, Simon introduced the spending on the budget, operating budget. Is that?
Okay,
5.1.
Yes.
Yeah, good catch, Gary. All right,
I'll second the motion to approve the minutes as amended.
thank you, Reed. Any comments on the motion, discussion on the motion? In favor of approving the motion as amended, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Terry. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes, I wasn't present, so I'll abstain.
Okay, thanks, Gary. All right, motion carries, minutes from the last meeting are approved as amended. Thanks, everyone. Now I moved away from my agenda to look for the other thing. What's next, town plan?
Yeah, we've got town plan, ERF and conservation outreach and then.
All right.
just very quickly, make sure Reed doesn't have a public comment.
Oh.
Oh,
Reed?
yes, public
Yeah.
comment. So, any public comments for today? I skipped
Not
over
from
those
me.
ones. All right, thanks, Reed.
Yep.
Can I ask I don't know, an agenda clarification question? You know, the public meeting for the development
Glazer,
Glazer.
plan
yeah.
was over the last 2 weeks since we last met.
Right,
Is there any way to add to the agenda, just a quick update, if any conservation members participated?
I think Terry was there, I know Terry said she attended. I was on vacation that day, so I didn't attend. I know it went through, and I think they're gonna have an informational session with the select board on November 9th. To introduce it to them.
It went through.
Yeah.
It was approved.
Well, they vote to move it to the select board.
The planning commission approved it to move to the select board, but it hasn't been approved by the select board. Right. So far, but there was, last night was, I believe was the zoning bylaw changes were being reviewed.
Yeah, they were reviewing bylaw changes, including the habitat one that we recommended. So that is conducted by an external consultant now.
And that got
contracted through town.
approved along with everything
Yeah.
except for chickens and.
Chickens and dog
Dog
kennels.
kennels got side tabled for right
Yeah.
now, but all the other changes got in.
Okay.
Okay. So on the Glazer thing, the select board review and vote will be for approval of the specific plan, or
Yeah, I think,
where it's
I
at.
mean, I'm not like. The way this select board likes to do things is they like an informational session where they can ask questions.
Okay.
First, and then they would have to decide to hold hearing,
Okay,
which needs public notification, and they have to take comment, and then they have to make a decision on it. So I think they have the informational session on November 7th. And I guess maybe I don't know what they're gonna do about fitting it in with budget. To be honest with you, maybe they can do it in December, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And like, our manager type decision.
yeah,
Yeah.
not your fault to worry about. Terry, you
Simon,
have-
is the planning board the whole planning board gonna be there for the informational session or just a representative?
I mean, I think some of them will, I don't think all of them will.
Right. Okay, just curious.
Yeah, so the select board meetings are the same day as the planning commission meetings. So I imagine some of them will go over for it, but. Like the planning commission at some point needs to start like doing what we're doing as well. Because they've been busy with other things. So I guess, they've got a lot of other things to do as well.
Sometimes they skip their meeting to attend the
Yeah.
select board meeting if it's like stocked on the agenda with stuff that they wanna comment on or be there to answer questions, but. Oftentimes they will just, like hold a half meeting and then go over for any agenda items toward the end that are planning commission related.
So, just so to wrap it up, so the select board will vote, when they get to it, they'll vote on approving a specific plan, and then next step after that will be the usual.
Discretionary
Pre-app,
permit.
they don't do
Yeah.
pre-app, they do discretionary. permit.
No, they need to do pre-app. yeah.
So then they're in the normal
Yeah,
queue for
Yeah.
projects, okay. All right,
You just bypass growth management.
That's one of the amendments.
Yeah.
okay.
They
All
get
right.
reviewed under their own set of rules.
So town plan chapter 3 and chapter 4. I did the Google survey. Late in the evening last night. I don't know if you saw my responses came in.
I think this is, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to, and I haven't figured out exactly how to do this yet in the best way, so. We started looking at chapter 3 last time, made some changes, so now you leave your email address and you get a copy of your responses back,
Yes, I got it.
which is good.
Thank you for that. It's very helpful.
Mhm.
The look back.
I wasn't able to make it so that you can see who made which comment, so I might be able to figure that out. I think what I might do for future is I might send this survey out like by this Friday, so on the 20th, so people have like a full week to do it. And then I'll find if there's some way that I can like make all the responses available to everyone. And that way, when I send out the agenda the following week, hopefully everyone can look at what everyone else has written, because I think otherwise we sort of get this
Circle
stuff.
stuff and
Yeah.
this was interesting.
And it's like I haven't really thought about anything that anyone's written.
That's good, because then
yeah.
we have to do it before 11:30 at the night before the meeting.
Is that while the scones are in the oven?
Yeah, no, that was actually before I realized I had to make scones. I was like, oh, all right. About half hour earlier than I'll quit.
So let's go back to the land use chapter, because it is an important chapter.
Yes.
And we've still got 4 more meetings this year, as well, to deal with all of this. So I think what we were doing is we're looking at each chapter and figuring out like, what do you think the objective should be? And then what do you think of the objective? So last time for the tap corners, we talked about, there's a line here about, the overall strategy is good, focusing development in there, but we should have more, sort of wildlife and habitat interests in there as like a transitory place for wildlife to stop.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Can you make that bigger?
It's somewhat clearer on your screen
Oh,
than it is
that's
on
better.
there.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
So I think it was a mission to get this chapter approved. So this is what we talked about last time. I think the top 3. So, and then the additional comments that I think we received, I think that might be a David comment looking at it.
Thank you, Simon.
This one, I think, must be Eric's.
Yeah, that's the last one on each one is probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it sort of follows what we were talking about last time. I think the overall strategy is good. It's about finessing it.
So will this information that you're collecting from us also be useful in the same way that you're collecting information from the town in these table discussions at public events? Okay, so this is like our version of participation.
Yeah, this is like the commission's comments,
Okay,
so. I haven't really like 100% figured out what I'm gonna do with this. But I think there's definitely like themes that emerge and are emerging. And then I've got,
outliers.
Yeah, because what makes sense to me is you take this is basically just like our verbal diarrhea about the topic. Then you need to we need to pull out
Put it
like, okay,
together,
multiple
yeah.
people mentioned this, the commission was really interested in this comment, so they want to
Yep.
be there to look at when we're rewriting things. And oh, this comment was off topic, it actually belongs in this other one, let's move it down to
Yeah.
the topic.
so my
It's just
initial
like,
thought
it's like
was
any other
like,
brainstorming exercise.
Yeah. we could try and tabulate it like this, but I think we're also gonna end up with. Like just other stuff as well from this process, like new things or. Like non-conservation comments as well, because.
Those we go to.
Yeah, you have your like
planning commission.
remit and then there's other stuff that you're interested in as well. So we can probably figure out a way to make this table work.
So who's actually responsible in the town for looking at those comments? Looking at the town collected comments and then putting it in a
We
line?
the staff would be writing the plan and
Okay.
synthesizing it. We've got a consultant on board who's going to be preparing a consultation report that like sets out everything we did and who we spoke to and what was said. And then we get like a report that says this is what people told us. And we sort of have to synthesize that into the different chapters of the plan.
Okay,
And then when the chapters come back, they'll be probably reviewed by the planning commission and probably also you for the relevant chapters to comment on.
that would be the 2024 activity then.
Yeah, so probably, I don't know, maybe March, April next year.
Okay.
So-
One other quick question or comment, I guess, is that those outlier comments, the comment that. You know, like my pedestrian and bike, and there are a couple other of those comments that I just saw in that one. Maybe it's not related to us, but there should be, I'll just flag it, that like those outlier comments should just. They should be there.
So my
You know,
thought was
How do
we
you
use
acknowledge
this,
them?
yeah, we use this table and then we put in other stuff. So some of it will slot into other chapters. Like the transport chapter is not the commission remit, but there's a lot of comments about transport, not just from you guys.
Sure.
We've done three I've
Pop-up.
done three pop-ups
Yeah.
at trailheads. And like there's a lot of comments about biking and being able to bike places.
Or not, being able to bike places.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So. Like you are 7 people who live in the town, so.
Yeah.
Those should be recorded somewhere.
Yeah,
And then some of those ones that don't fall into chapters that are assigned to the Conservation Commission and to you to draft language for.
Yeah,
We can submit, you can help us get those comments to whoever is drafting language. for
yeah,
that
I mean,
section.
all this is gonna go into one report that everyone's gonna
Okay.
have.
right.
So they'll see the conservation comments.
Right.
And they'll see the outliers, the things that were like a little.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's not like, I think. Yeah, I mean, saying we want better bike connectivity is not an outlier, that's gonna be,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
for me, that's gonna be a massive part of this plan,
Yeah.
but it's just not a conservation thing.
Okay. Well, that's good
Uh,
news.
yeah.
That's good news, because I feel like South Burlington is eating our lunch on that topic.
But, and of course, like, if you wanna, like, come to the planning commission meetings where they talk about transport. And
That's
say, I'm a
great
resident
place.
and I wanna talk about this and it's important that we do this,
Yeah.
then definitely do that, cause this is your chance for the next 8 years, so.
Right.
You know, it's not much fun going to a Tuesday evening meeting before 7 AM meeting, but it's worth it. Yeah.
All right, so we've got feedback on chapter 3. Do we want to review that in any kind of detail or?
Well, so,
Cruise through it?
yeah,
We,
Or you can,
we did leave off like 3/4 of the way through, so I know.
Yeah,
I
we
know
didn't-
didn't get.
I don't think we got that far. We talked about rural Williston. And I think it's worth just remembering that, like, just remembering that we had these comments, which are pretty supportive. Really. Another interesting thing that I found, so this is about retaining the 75% open space pattern. I think everyone was pretty supportive of. We had this conservation goal, permit larger open space developments in highly suitable locations.
The only thing about the 75% rule that to me didn't kind of show up was like this idea of it is better for preventing fragmentation to cluster. And so like if you have 5 neighbors who all want to subdivide, it would be better to put all the units on one lot, on one of those properties. And not put new construction on the other 4. And that doesn't, I don't see that sort of ability to incentivize clustering anywhere in that, and the 75% thing ends up almost doing the opposite. It's like everything has to be really spread out in order to meet the 75%. So I didn't put that in as a comment, but
How would
that's
that kind
where I
of,
was getting at with my strategic protection.
how would that kind of clustering affect the rural character?
that, so then there's a trade-offs probably,
Right.
yeah.
You don't want little mini villages in the middle of the rural zone.
Well, I guess, so the trade-off is you have the little mini villages surrounded by larger tracts of undeveloped land versus where we seem to be heading now, which is.
A string of houses down the road with
Right.
conserved with open space behind
Yeah.
them.
But I don't know which is better.
I don't know. And different versions might be better for different people.
No, I understand the point, yeah.
So we're having our regulations on open space at the moment that, like, obviously the 75% has to be contiguous. And it does like prioritize putting it next to existing open space parcels. Somebody talked about last time is like the point you're making about the sort of ribbon development along roads with the open space parcels behind that. Is that good or bad?
Right.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
seem to. Okay. I seem to recall a study that was done at UVM years ago where they looked at that question and concluded that the ribbon approach is not as beneficial to wildlife and land conservation goals as
Right.
the little mini village approach where you're clustering habitat. But that was, my memory is very fuzzy and that was a long time ago, so it might be worth looking into that again. I think maybe I brought that up here before, but
I mean, that would make sense if it was like, if you do ribbon development along the road and there's no wildlife crossings.
right.
Yeah,
You want to get those wildlife
Constrict.
crossings through. So maybe that's something to think about, like, if we are, like, say, for example, we go down the road of saying, push everything close to the road and then get these big blocks behind.
Right.
Great, but make sure you have these gaps so that wildlife can continue to get through.
And I don't know how we plan for that, because like Reed's example. If you have 5 people who are abutting landowners that all want to subdivide the parcel, then at the same time. Then that
Yeah,
works.
which is rare, yeah.
But in practice, how does that
Yeah.
make that happen?
the transfer of development rights program or concept was the closest thing that could work for that, where but that also requires them to be interested at the same time.
Yeah. So they would have to be developing as well.
Yeah,
They'd have to have a contract with someone who wants to receive those units at the time they do discretionary permit.
yeah, so it's just even that is probably not gonna be effective or utilized, so I don't know if there's another way. I don't know, if anybody is interested in trying to locate, I see, you're gonna say, I am trying to Google. I was trying to Google it and find anything about that, or maybe other people in the planning department know
Yeah.
somebody who would be able to speak to, the ribbon development factor, I just, before committing to, continuing that direction with what we're getting, which is, lots of, subdivision along roads, with open space behind, before committing to continuing that for another 8 years, I would like to at least pull my head out of the sand and look at, like, is that a good pattern? Should we be starting, even if we're not completely doing a turn, like just starting to change direction a little bit?
The question could also be in the alternative that you're having the effect of the ribbon development. How can you tweak that to optimize
Yeah,
the preservation and
can we do
habitat,
anything
right?
more
Because
than,
trying to pivot when you're in the middle of something that's actually like having
Kind
an
of work.
effect, you know. Given the complexities and difficulties of trying to get, 4 or 5 people to coordinate when they're gonna subdivide and how they're gonna sort of cluster around that. There might be something in the language and like how we review those permits that says, consideration of other parcels or something like that. There might be
I mean, maybe we've already got the solution, which is.
Yeah,
We amend the strategic wildlife habitat assessment regulations to allow for wildlife crossings, which I think we're doing, aren't we?
yeah,
To make sure you don't block
and you
those
protect
wildlife
them
crossings.
officially?
And you protect them officially through that. That might be,
And then it just naturally
yeah,
changes where the housing gets
Yeah.
added, I mean, we don't have a lot of housing getting added. Sorry, Gary, I know you were starting to talk to.
well, it sounds like, Simon, you said there's already something in the bylaws indicating
Well,
that,
no, the stuff we looked at with Jens. Where we were wanting to change the it wasn't just about habitat blocks, there was stuff in there about wildlife crossings.
Right.
And making sure you don't block those wildlife crossings of roads and things like that.
And those are working
But
their way through.
But is there something in there that says to the effect of, when you're considering where your 75% conserved land is, you need to be aware of adjacent properties and where, like if there's already been a development and a set aside of that 75%, the next person needs to consider where that is and try to encourage habitat and contiguous open space and things like that.
There is something in regulations to that effect at the moment.
So maybe we should find out what that is and maybe enhance it or something like that.
Yeah, want to do on the fly, but it's.
Come on, Simon.
You probably can.
that is very close to what I was.
You can probably control
Trying to
effort
Yeah.
contiguous.
Yeah. Because I think that the likelihood of 5 people or even 2 people developing at the same time is like super rare. In fact, people are probably thinking, damn, I'm pissed that guy's developing, I'm gonna hold
Yes.
off as long as I can. And so I think that'd be really rare.
Must the protected open space be contiguous? Yes, it must be contiguous. It also must be contiguous with any open space on adjoining lots or parcels.
Yeah, so that covers some of it, I guess.
Where are the changes that we did with Jens? Those, we submitted them to the planning commission. They were part of their laundry list of bylaw amendment.
Well, we didn't submit them to the planning commission. We need to update the town plan maps as part of this
Oh, right.
process.
Because the maps need to be part of.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so they were waiting for the next town plan to be able to have the,
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think maybe that's something for chapter
okay,
13.
Okay.
Where we say like, Matt wants a prioritized list of stuff. I guess like I'm feeling like number 1 priority for the Conservation Commission is getting these SWHA regulations adopted. Because they're ready to go, basically, it's just getting them over the line.
yeah. Okay, thanks for talking through that idea. We should probably
Yeah.
keep moving through chapter 3.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. I was just gonna suggest that as well. What else do we want to focus on in chapter 3?
So, we talked about TDR last time. Talked about, adaptive reuse last time. I think we left off industrial lands. I don't know whether you do want to talk about this.
Yeah. I didn't have much to say on this one, other than that, just other than keeping it as an option and maintaining flexibility for those parcels that are zoned as industrial for industrial use. And compatibility with the abutting land uses, whether it's residential or something else, but
Yeah,
I commented on this, that I think the industrial areas do have pretty significant impacts on roads, you know, access. And that I do think that, you know, this industrial development is ripe for the type of fee structure that we have talked about, that I have talked about a lot, for maintenance of pathways, using that to build pathways or build parking lots and create sort of better access for public pedestrian friendly spaces, because those are the kinds of vehicles that keep people and pedestrians especially from feeling safe.
Large vehicles.
cement mixers.
Cement
Loud
mixers
vehicles.
covered in bright lights, you
Yeah.
know, the circle the neighborhood. And listen. No, we love them. Keep it coming, Shamrock Truck. But I mean, but seriously, like that is, you know, like I personally oppose the transfer center that CWSD suggested, because that's right next to my neighborhood, and that is going to have a big impact on the types of trucks going down Mountain View Road, right? And so if you're gonna do a development like that in an industrially zoned area, you have to think about the ramifications around the rest of the town.
Yep.
So if you're gonna increase big trucks going down Mountain View Road, fix Mountain View Road, make it wider, put in the path, make it, you know, keep it pedestrian friendly.
I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what my comment was about too. Framed slightly differently, but the need to keep thinking about what's happening around those areas.
Exactly.
And how that'll impact the rest of the residents or whoever else is using that part of town.
These were the specific subsections within
Yeah.
there.
well, this is the actual objective.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I didn't know anything about the landfill
Yeah.
storyline.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't remember what the status of that was, the regional landfill thing. Is that still on the table?
Like short Googling at CSWD's work plan for the next 20 years, I don't know. Like it hasn't come
Well,
up,
if you haven't heard about it, then that says something.
it hasn't come up.
it certainly wasn't. So when you go to the town plan, and it has this listed for a website, it's actually in a different chapter. So it's like a 3-click process. Which is basically links to the CSWD website, and there's no mention of that landfill. And I'm wondering if they pivoted from the landfill to the transfer, basically.
Right, so they did want to do the big recycling center there, didn't they? Which I think they probably are doing.
Yeah, and that, I thought that got tanked,
I don't know.
the recycling center idea. They wanted to move it there away from industrial Ave, right? To get to deal with the seagull situation. Isn't that what that was all about?
I don't know, Casella on Industrial Ave.
Yeah, that's Casella.
Oh, right.
Yeah. This is what, like, I like this one, residential neighborhoods. So people's objective, what I found interesting about this, is that basically the existing policy is just leave them alone, don't do anything there. I don't think that's really what we're saying here.
Yeah, so one of my main comments was that, I haven't seen any official relationship or attempt to maintain a relationship between the town and HOAs. And HOAs have a lot of influence over what happens, in the residential setting. And I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity. And having been on a board for an HOA for 5 years now, like there's just the entire time, it's like we're both working on similar things, but we're never cooperating. And so we end up with poor results all around.
I am glad that you brought that up too. I actually had something drafted to that point in my comments and then deleted it because I couldn't figure out how to articulate it. Without making it sound like this town would need to hire a new staff person just to do all of that.
Yeah, and inventory and communication channels for that's the one there, the second.
That's
comment.
exactly what I was thinking.
Find ways to partner, improve management of open space, like. I bet there's a lot of HOAs that just the board doesn't even think about, maybe we could rewild some of this, or maybe we could change our mowing
Right.
practices, or maybe
Yeah.
like, they just don't even, that
Yeah,
stuff just
just
doesn't even come
once
up.
a year, that's a mowing contract.
Yeah, sign the
Move on,
mowing
yeah.
contract, and then the mower decides how short to cut it, cause they're like, I don't wanna come back later this week, so I'm gonna cut it shorter.
Right.
Like, it just ends up being poorly managed, and trees that get handed over to the town through the right of way process, accepting the right of way. A lot of times they aren't maintained well up through that point, so then they're already poorly shaped or trimmed, pruned or whatever, and they're unhealthy, and then that just leads to unhealthy street trees long-term, stuff like that, so. Yeah, having an inventory and some sort of communication channels would be beneficial, I think.
I agree, and I think that would be helpful for the HOAs in the town beyond the scope of just the conservation commission work too. To build some sort of communication channel or network or whatever, because that's the HOAs, I don't know how many there are in town, but that's another way to access a lot of the residents for various reasons.
I have a question about HOAs. So when a development goes in, the developer makes the plans, they set the layout and things, and they decide where open spaces and trees and all that kind of thing, along with the town. So the HOA members come in after the homes are sold. And then a HOA is formed and then they start making decisions on how it's going to be managed, or is a lot of that decided before people actually buy the homes?
I think at the outset is decided by the developer who sets up the board. And the bylaws for the homeowners association, hopefully in alignment with what's in the agreement with the town for that development. And then at some point, the developer sells enough of the parcels, maybe not 100%, but 75% of the parcels. And then turns it over to the homeowners association to manage, so they have that, the board has that starting point that the developer initiated for them, but then eventually the developer steps back, the board steps in or takes over, and then they manage it going forward, but they have that starting point that was set up with the developer.
And things
Okay,
like the common elements, like the green spaces that are not designated for a particular lot, or a particular homeowner, those get established by the developer and often are very difficult to change, because once they've been mapped and set out to be like, oh, this is gonna be, just a big open green, this area is gonna be a playground. Once that's been kind of established, it takes a lot for a neighborhood to go back and change those things. And agree.
To be on the board, you have to be a resident of that neighborhood.
Not always, I think that depends on how it's set up, the developer. Could just make it open to an owner, but the owner could rent their property.
Oh, yeah.
True. Okay.
Yeah, you have to be a landowner, I think,
Well, that's a good.
but not a resident.
Right.
Is that fair that if you're a long-term renter in a development as an HOA and you're not allowed to sit on the board?
That's a state statute,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it comes from
But the-
37A.
Okay. Reed's
But
familiar.
there are,
I'm far too familiar, yeah.
yeah, there are homeowners association meetings, so anybody can go to those, whether or not they're on the board and have an influence on what's going on. But I agree with Reed is, I mean, in our association, we've tried to change some bylaws and it's just almost impossible to do. You gotta get like
2/3
90% of the people. Yeah, I mean, we've tried it several times and it's failed.
Congress.
Yeah, you have to have a super majority to change things,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get a super majority of people to even vote, let alone vote the same way.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
we were working with Pleasant Acres on something years ago. Through the Conservation Commission, I think we're trying to do something with the trails or something over there. And I think in their bylaws, they have to have 100% of the owners vote on something to change to make a decision or to change the bylaws or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah, I wouldn't
proxy.
doubt it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, to me, the simplest way to start is just to get to a place where, maybe it's the planning department has an inventory of all the HOAs and a point of contact for them, so that there's at least even the possibility of communicating. Sounds like work.
We've got a majority list of HOAs because Emily reached out to them for the town plan to like disseminate information, but there are some older ones where like they seem to be defunct even though they exist.
Yeah, Secretary of State's office has a complete list of legal ones, but it doesn't mean it's up to date.
So the other thing on residential areas was this whole, was the making sure they're integrated to sort of pathways and have access for parks, which is, again, a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, reference to healthy community design elements. So I think that's things like making sure the front door faces the street and you've got sidewalks on both sides of the road, things like that.
Safe crossings.
I have to say, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah,
But the way that you just described that is actually interesting because I actually am aware of several communities in like the Sacramento Davis area of California where it's kind of the opposite, where the front door is actually in a shared pedestrian facing area and you drive into the back, basically. So like having a front door facing the road is actually not that neighborly friendly, you know, if your neighbor is like a big road away, it's fine in like a small, 25 mph kind of road. But I thought that, that could be an
That's an interesting concept.
yeah. I never had the pleasure of living in one of those, but I did get a chance to sort of see it and I was like.
Well,
this
that's the way
actually is
Zephyr, the townhouses along Zephyr are.
Yeah, I saw a
You
couple
enter
of
in the
those.
back and
Yeah.
there's a loop, they've got their recreational facilities and parking and garages are all in the back.
That's right.
And then the main road is just a bike path,
Mhm.
is what's out front, which I thought was kind of cool. Different.
right. I mean, like where I am, that's a little bit more, where I'm from, that's a bit more common.
Oh yeah, more of like a
Um,
English.
You know, I used to, like when I went to elementary school, I walked through one of those neighborhoods where everyone faced onto a pedestrian path and you park on the back.
Mm.
That sounds great. It really just sounds
Seems more
awesome.
peaceful.
Yeah.
So I think this is generally like the, what we do about this is strategically open space. So the general not developing it, a response, but maybe we can talk more about that, in chapter 13.
My point on open space was that it's not always clear which area in the neighborhood is just undeveloped versus which is open space, and that I think there needs to be better marked signage. It's like there's a green zone in my neighborhood, and I'm not sure why. Is it like a good place? I mean, people like picnic there. It's got a nice view of the Adirondacks, but it's not really clear what it is. If it's
Actually protected or if it's just waiting to be
Right,
built.
yeah. I'm pretty sure it's protected. My neighborhood's done, but, yeah.
Well, it could be also just the adjoining landowner has a larger parcel and they mow it and let it sit there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so like signing it as this is a community open space. And it's gonna be mowed and it's there
Yeah.
for picnicking, great, or this is a community open space and we're preserving it for grassland bird species or something
Yeah.
like that, you know?
That's something I could see, that's an interesting point, that's something I could see the town might encourage. But I also think that would be on the onus of the homeowners association to
Right,
sign
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
type of an area.
yeah. But like, that would be the sort of thing where for consistency, you might have. You know, like we were doing the mountain bike trails signs a couple weeks ago and it felt very like bespoke and we were sort of coming up with it on the fly.
Mhm.
But if you had like a consistent style,
Mhm.
that could just be town-wide, but then the HOA pays for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that style is already there, like if you look at the signs for. The access to the Allen Brook Trail through.
So Chatham Woods recently put up some
Exactly,
signs.
Chatham Woods, that's what I was trying to pull up.
Remind me where Chatham Woods is.
It's Michael Lane and Ian Lane, so it's like up a part of North Williston.
They just have
Denver
these,
Catamount.
they just have these almost like signs on for the trails, the hiking trails, just a little brown wooden sign, yellow and routed out. Letters that say whatever Allen Brook Trail access or something.
Okay.
With some, and they did, that was a neighborhood thing, I think, that they did some fencing or whatever, like a wrought iron fencing to direct people between the houses and down the trail to access the
Right.
Allen Brook Trail.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
make it more publicly accessible, but still make people feel like they're not gonna have folks just wandering across their lawns and
Right.
stuff.
Yep.
Right,
Sorry, is it
Creek's Edge.
Creek's Edge over here also has like, just like a little section of fencing that's shaped a little bit like a funnel. So that as you get near it, you can see like, okay, I shouldn't walk right next to the person's house, like they're telling me.
Yes,
go
that's the
here.
one I think, exactly,
Yeah.
Chatham Woods says that too, but that's where I might jogging to. Okay,
Yep, signage and better definition on open space uses. So this is the village, what do you think the objective should be?
my kids and their buddies wanted to bike from the school to GameStop on Friday because the new Mario game is being demoed there.
Mm,
And one of the dads had to go with them because it involves so many road crossings. And so that was top of mind when I just responded to that last night, was like that connector between the school and the, let's just say the village and the town center.
Yep.
Really seems important.
I agree, that's a good point, and my son is doing the same thing now too, to get over to that area
Yeah.
from. This part of town.
It's also applicable to like
Back
high
then.
school students who wanna have a summer job. Not all of them have access to a vehicle and they shouldn't need to in order to work jobs in the growth center. They should be able to get there and work. And I'm talking about paths here and that's another chapter, but
Yeah, I agree, like when I bike to work. I often see someone just walking in the bike lane between here and the growth centre.
it just seems unnecessary for some guys.
And dangerous as hell. I mean,
Well, yeah.
you know, I
It's
had
also dangerous for bikers if you're biking and there's pedestrians walking in the bike lane the other direction and then you got cars and.
yeah. Well, I had a friend who had a very bad accident in front of that church. Right on that hill. Basically, she was going up and someone who was feeling a little drowsy was going down and it was really bad. And I don't care if there's a bike lane there. I'm never in that stretch of road. Like, it's just not safe. It's just not safe. Bike path or no. So the dedicated pathways are really the way to go.
Separated,
Right,
dedicated pedestrian.
right. If something that you would feel comfortable,
Cars and
three,
bikes separate.
right, 3 kids riding abreast, you know, on their way into the growth center.
Yeah.
That's the safety spot.
Yeah, that's one for the transportation chapter. for sure.
I mean, but it's also the town. I mean, it's, you know, it's property, it's land use. You have to zone it as a pathway, get an easement, all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
I mean, that'll be an interesting one for the prioritization discussion. By doing that sort of bike path is really hard and takes a long time. You've got to negotiate with a lot of people. You've got to do a lot of studies.
Yeah.
You've got to buy a lot of stuff. You've got to like it's hard. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it means like if we can, like, everyone wants a bike path in different areas. What is the town's number one place where it wants a bike path?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up with a list of like 8.
sounds good.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, where do we start with this?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when we were at Stockbrook Hollow that evening, and I think from a transportation perspective, that corridor, village to Taos Corners is should be like a top priority for alternative transportation path, but then from a recreation perspective, I'd love to see it somehow a divided or bike path going down Oak Hill Road out towards Lake Iroquois.
Yeah, that's a big potential recreational route, that is.
Old South Road.
Yeah, all right, yeah, that's true. All right,
Oh,
so we're
also
at, we're at 8 o'clock. This is when we had slotted to transition from town plan to ERF conservation outreach. How much do we have? We're almost done with chapter 3,
Yeah,
right?
do you want me to- I mean.
All right, let's knock this out.
Like, I feel like.
Can I say one more thing about village?
Yeah,
So having been born into a house in the village and now living again in the village. One of the things that I've noticed is that it's just not. I don't want the village to be as dense. Or as filled in with things as the growth center area, obviously. Or even as some of the neighborhoods, there were a little bit more density in the past has been exchanged for affordable housing and things has been tried to be exchanged for that. But adding density the way that it's been trending with like adding more ADUs and stuff like that, I think is a good thing because I think it's going to enable a few more businesses to come into Williston. For example, if you have a cafe in the village, you not only, you can completely eliminate that trip to the growth center, whether by car or by pedestrian, because you have an option in the village. So we have Adams Market, which I think is great. It's kind of like a farm stand style place. We have Corner Quick Stop, I think it's great. We have a veterinary office, that's great, but like we don't have a creamy stand, which I know something comes up a lot for people. We don't have.
I imagine
we don't have
every
a cafe or
parent
sandwich
north
shop.
of 89 would love to see creamy stand in the village.
Yeah, I would like to see, and I know this will get covered by the plan, but I'd like to see like at least one restaurant that you can eat dinner at. I'd like to see at least one cafe or sandwich shop that you can get food during the day at, fresh, made to order food.
Yeah.
And I would like to see more options for people to get healthy food without having to go to the break center. So that was my.
I've been thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
We had a cafe right here in the village.
I must say that our neighbor was David Herskowitz for years, and he had the old brick
Yeah,
house, restaurant was very popular, but in the end, it just didn't make it. There wasn't, I guess, enough support, to keep them in business. And the other thing I just want to mention is, I just learned from the other day at one of the planning board meeting, is there some kind of a state law coming up where if a piece of property is on sewer and water, that they can have up to 5 units per acre. So that's something that's coming down the pike, I think.
yeah,
So that would really make the density pretty high, so.
yeah.
Along the same,
Okay. Go, Gary.
I was just gonna say, along the same line, I know it's counter to what some of you have been saying, but does the town have anything, Simon, about infill allowed in certain areas where you would, have a larger lot in the village that might allow an additional house on it if it could get permitted with this encouraging infill?
So Emily's been spending a lot of time working on the zoning regs for the village. They are like, I don't know enough about them to answer that question. I think the answer is they're trying to encourage it, but in a way that doesn't adversely
Right,
affect the
it's trick-
character of the
It's
village.
tricky, yeah.
Yeah, all the while not making it too discretionary. So it needs to still be predictable.
What is this village zoning district? I mean, where is it?
It's pretty, probably one of the smallest districts. It sort of goes along Route 2.
It's here from the church at the top of the hill by the Commons to Federated Church.
Intersection,
Basically,
church.
yeah, it's basically like the core center of the town,
It's just Route 2.
and it's just Route 2. It
Okay.
doesn't include the stuff off of the residential neighborhoods off the
Yeah.
It's the dark orange.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Uh,
I mean, it's a reasonable size. It includes the historic parts. We've got I-89 in there. And I think it goes out to that. I can't remember that old farm
my hand farm?
building.
Is it my
Yeah, it
hand?
might be Mahan.
The UVM operates.
Yeah, out there.
Mhm.
So what portion of it is completed? I mean, how much of this is undevelopable at this point?
I don't know the answer to that question.
'Cause I think
The commons, I would assume, is
Yeah,
other than the homes is undevelopable. Obviously, Central Park,
yeah,
no. Our town hall field, no. And there are probably some elements.
it'd be interesting to
100%.
look to somehow identify areas that are still open for development in there so that we know what what you have to work with, basically.
Okay. What else do we have on chapter 3 or anything?
So, this was explore creation, modification, blah, blah, blah. One thing that we did do, although this is like a thing for creating waivers or individual specific bylaw instruments to deal with things, and I think this is something that you guys did before I started, which was refine the watershed protection buffers.
Yeah, this was the shed thing, right?
Yeah, so that people who,
constricted,
and
constrained properties.
yeah, and I think it worked really well for that. Only one guy's done it, but it worked really well for him.
That's the one right on,
yeah.
on stage,
Yeah.
right by the Allen Brook.
So I think he said he's not gonna mow in an area, he's gonna plant trees and then we let him have like a big shed or something in the watershed buffer.
Yeah, that was the example I had in
Yeah.
my comment there too.
Yeah, it was a good trade. Basically, we
Yeah.
said, we can trade
Yeah.
things. We can, you give the town and the brook something good and
Yeah.
you get a shed.
Within an area you're not supposed to have it,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my thought too, that this is working. I don't see any reason to change it. really.
Yeah. But that might be, it's not necessarily all conservation that we could have other sort of waivers or things, just bigger picture, something to think about, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, so next time we'll do chapter 4.
How many people have responded, Simon?
I've got 4 on chapter 4, so I can follow up. I'll follow up on Friday. I think we'll just do chapter 4 next time, so we don't have to rush it. Getting a lot of points made about EAB. So I'll follow up with a couple of people who haven't had time to complete it yet. And then we'll get that out with the agenda so everyone can have a look. If nothing else, I'll just PDF the thing so you can all see it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying,
Yeah.
either do that or people just share the link with the responses too. Okay, so ERF and conservation outreach. For me, I still have to write the memo. If Simon, if you could send me the memo from last year as a new Google Doc, and then send me the
Yeah.
link to the Google Doc, then I can just start editing in a new Google Doc.
Okay.
I've got some progress, if you wanna put up the deck, yes, and I've got some progress to share, on the plans for the outreach event.
If you like, you can share it.
Oh, I'm not on the meeting.
Yeah, okay, I'll share
Yeah,
it.
probably faster if you do it. I'm looking at, slide 11. I can just tell you what slide to go to, so,
How do I slideshow this?
it'll be, yes, view. Slideshow, yeah. There you go, so, we're narrowing in on some dates. This is the timeline in reverse chronological order that we discussed before with some updates, so starting from the bottom. In early October, we were thinking of hosting an outreach event, we decided it was too soon. Both for rallying the troops as well as, there just wouldn't be any immediate action that we could have somebody take. And also that, the more we talked about it, it was less about seeking public input on what should our conservation goals be, and it was more about educating on what our conservation goals are and how the public plays a role in ensuring that those are able to come to fruition. So then moving up the page from the bottom, then we had, so late October, we're getting into this, drafting and getting ready to submit a recommendation to the town manager for funding for the next fiscal year. Then in November, the town manager is going to be working on developing that recommended budget, which would include whatever take into account what we recommended. That's different than past years where the town managers already had a recommendation before we've put our ask in, so we're trying to get ahead of that. Then the week after Thanksgiving, which is 11/30 through 12/7, is when we're trying to target to have this outreach event, so that would be after the town manager has already recommended something to the has already received our recommendation and is in the process of transmitting a draft budget to the select board for working from massaging from that point. And then we started looking at availability and locations for this. So I reached out to Federated Church and Juniors. They both had a contact form on their websites for like, if you want to reach out to us. So I put in a note to both of them just saying, basically, it's the Conservation Commission, we want to do a public outreach event. We're expecting 20 to 50 people, we want to be able to show some media. Would your space be appropriate for something between 11:30 through 12/7 on a weekend? And so I haven't heard back yet, but I'm gonna start those conversations. We wanted to try to, I spoke with Eric, we did a little working session and we wanted to try to do something that could have a decent amount of space, be a good place to view media, and then also it would be nice if it was a community space. So that's why we're trying to do like a partnership, maybe Federated Church, maybe Juniors. If anybody has, a third option they'd like me to touch base with, happy to do that. Our fallback option is something like the library meeting room or this space, but these are small spaces. We really would like to do something where, I would love to get 50 people in a room for this event. I think it's more likely we'll be in like the 20 to 30 range, but we'll see.
Yeah. And part of that is yes, goal of 50 people in a room. How and where are we most likely to achieve that? Is it the Federated Church or the Juniors? I'm just realizing now that for Juniors, we pull people in, maybe they're not gonna actually be Williston residents, but the Federated Church are more likely to have a targeted audience.
At the same time, all the people who live in like Finney Crossing can walk to Juniors.
Yep.
Right, so then maybe it's a little bit easier. Maybe we can use Emily's list of HOAs in the area and I could say, hey, HOAs, could you send out a note to your folks that there's gonna be this celebration of conserved land in
I
town?
never get any communication from my HOA.
Really? No. Well, I make sure that our property managers send stuff out. But the Finney Crossing folks, they sent out, I believe they forwarded on the invite for the 2050 workshop on November 9th. So,
Yeah, I
Okay.
think Williston Woods forwarded out there
and
one too.
And I'm gonna be at that event, so I can also go to that event if we have, you know, a date and a location by then, I can go to that event with like a little flyer or something to give to people. Or just ask them to book, you know, to, hey, go to the website and check out the information about the event. So I hope that we'll have something solid by the time we get into November here. So if you go to the next slide, Simon, so I know this is really bright. So looking at the subject matter experts and partners for this event. I've actually gotten a really helpful response on availability, so. Everything that's green is like a desirable date for that person, anything that's blue is a not blocked out date, and anything that's red is a no-go. So based on this, 11:30 and 12:07 have the most green. With only one person not available, so we would be missing Simon, but Simon, I was thinking it's possible that. And, you know, maybe we could get another staff member, Melinda might be willing to consider if we did like 11:30, maybe we could get Melinda to come in and just kind of. Share some planning department knowledge. For the conversation, and then we would be missing Jens if we were on 12:07. But he was, you know, he was encouraging me that. Don't worry about missing me, like you guys have, we've talked about this a lot, you know, what my talking points are, I don't have that many. He could send me like bullet points, like if he was here, what would he say?
Yeah.
So,
So for the benefit of everybody else, we have, and going down the list, we have Bob Heiser from Vermont Land Trust, Kate Warner from Trust for Public Land, Jens.
Hayden's also Trust for Public Land.
That was
at the
my
bottom.
question. Okay, Hayden, all right, and then Jens from Fish and Wildlife Department is working on us on the land use or the land cover mapping, right?
Mhm.
And then Marcy K.
Marcy Cass, so she's our contact for Sustainable Williston, so she's willing to help with like event planning, outreach, she's an artist, so if we wanna have like something put together, graphic art for advertising it, she's a great person for that.
Great. All right, so we're looking at November 30th or December 7th, so then
Space availability was
That's
probably
the
gonna be
next
the
question.
determining factor at this point, unless somebody's like jumping up and down going, wait, don't do 11:30 because of XYZ. So at this point, 11:30 and 12:07 are the dates that if I get a response from Federated Church or juniors. I would be kind of honing in on those dates to see which one could work. 12:07 to me is a little bit preferable. Just because it's further away from the Thanksgiving holiday. And Simon's attendance to me is valuable. So right now I'm looking at 12:07 as like the first choice that I would go after.
so this 12/7, we just lose Jens, right?
We lose Jens, but I can bring forward some information from him. He could give me a slide of like, here's my key talking points.
I guess that'd be my preference is December 7th as well. If we can get the venue.
Terry, Gary, David, any
There is the venue fact.
I have a
observations?
question about, is the Old Brick Church not available for meetings?
that, you know, that could be a good third option, Terry. I hadn't, I don't know what they have for media. Making it easy to project things, but I can ask.
Yeah,
That's a good
I think,
location.
I think it would be better if it was a non-business, just.
You think
just
so?
to- Well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I
Huh?
think, you know, a kind of a common community space might be more comfortable for people to go to.
Yeah, so something like Old Brick Church or Federated Church seems like a better option, or the library.
Right. What day of the week are those? Do you remember? Reed?
So, sorry, I should have put that in there. 12/7 is a Thursday, and so is 11:30.
Okay.
They're both Thursdays.
Yeah,
And it
I
would be
could
a
probably
week-
make either one of them.
Okay. I would hope that folks would be interested in attending from the commission, but I'm committing to being the MC for the event, so I'll greet people, introduce the topic. I think of myself as probably the main speaker to lead the conversation, but I hope that the materials like the maps and the story, what are they called? The storybooks, the storyboards that we have online. I'm mostly just gonna be like a tour guide, taking people through, hey, let me show you a few things that the town has put together. Let's take a look at the SWHA mapping, which hasn't gone into regulatory effect yet, but is coming. Those types of things. And then I would love for it to reserve a significant amount of time for just questions and dialogue with attendees. Like, what are you interested in? What do you notice when you look at these maps? Or what do you notice when you take a look at the different conserved lands that we are celebrating?
So given the closeness to the town planning discussions,
Say that too.
are people gonna? I mean, why not just say this is also, town plan?
Simon, how could that work if we want to gather 2050 feedback?
It would, so we've already got like overlap with the community centre, so I don't really see a problem in principle with that. I think. So, we are going to be talking about conservation. It's one of the 5 topics at the town plan. And the ERF will come up. We're gonna have like a rolling slideshow that's on display, so I've already done like the ERF slide for that. So it definitely will be it's a topic of conversation. But once we break out, I don't know that, like, I would probably raise the ERF, you'd raise the ERF, Laura would raise the ERF. But I don't know if someone from like volunteers from, I don't know, the Cemetery Commission or something is gonna
Even
table captain to raise the ERF. So it will definitely come up.
At this sort of event though, do we have, at the pop-up events, you had like a map with pins that people could put, like, is that something that would be really a light lift to bring to this event and say, while you're here, we have a map in the corner, feel free to, mark things? Is that?
No, that'd be fine. We can bring any of the materials we have for Williston 2050. So we do have like one map, which is like your favorite place in Williston and where you think should be conserved. With the dots on the map, so we can definitely bring that. That's no hardship.
Okay, so I'm just gonna add to my notes as we solidify it, to ask you to bring the Williston 2050 setup, I'm gonna call it, for feedback, so that we can gather any feedback that people want to share at the event.
Do we have a map of kind of primitive paths and encourage people to,
I'm glad you
identify
asked.
connections they'd prefer?
I'm glad that you asked, because if we can go to down 2 slides to slide 14. Just a reminder, the purpose of the event is 2 things. One is the primary thing. This was based on recommendations from Jens and Kate and Bob. They were like, you need to make this a celebration of what's been conserved, with an afterthought of, now that we've looked at that, what comes to mind? What sort of questions do you have about like effectiveness of the ERF, or how we should fund it in the future, or what lands we should be focusing on? Get people thinking. And, oh, by the way, the select board is going to be reviewing the budget, and this is what we have proposed. That would be kind of the flow. So the main chunk of it is to look at things like maps of conserved land, some of these specific spaces. So one of the things I could really use help with is what conserved areas or milestones should we be celebrating? Because then we can come up with, to your point, Gary, the maps or the online resources that I'll pull up as like a tour guide to say, let's take a look at some of these places that have been conserved, and I'll pull up the resources we already have on them.
Yeah, so I know that you and I have gone over this, and this is the outcome of our conversation. I don't.
It's just the beginning. I mean, we just started throwing some stuff. This is spaghetti thrown on a wall, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this is a boring thing to celebrate, but just having to me, having a land use chapter in our town plan, and maybe that's a requirement by the state, but having it as robust as it is I think very important, and Maybe putting my day job hat on, but the watershed health one I think is pretty exciting too.
So let's see, do we have that in here
I mean,
anyways?
a lot of these, like, if you want to talk about mud ponds, that covers a lot of different areas. That covers watershed health, and it covers habitat, and it covers wildlife, and it covers recreation.
Mhm.
So, like, I feel like places are a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
water
guess I was just
quality.
thinking-
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking like, when did the town incorporate these chapters into the town plan? Like, was it, you know, that. We've got 2005 was the significant wildlife habitat area protection standards established.
Yeah.
Was there you know, did we incorporate a land use chapter in the whatever 1996
Yeah.
town plan or something like that?
Yeah, what's the link to town plan actually doing
Yeah.
this stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then on that timeline. You know, we could say we have, you know, in 1996, that's 1986 more likely, we had land use land use chapter. Following that, we ended up with Five Tree Hill, we ended up with Mud Pond and, you know, much later we had Sucker Brook and these areas that are conserved now and that are very highly used as we're learning from
Yeah,
Wilson residents, but also not transients in town, commuters, people driving home from wherever to wherever else, stop at Sucker Brook Hall to go for a hike on the way, at the end of the workday.
Yeah.
That's one way to tell a story.
Yeah, so we could do it based on timeline, we could do it based on like taking a tour of a map of Williston, like let's go around and check out some of these different pins on a map. I can see, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Prezi, but Prezi has basically like a giant presentation board and then it zooms in on different areas. So I could create one that has a giant map of Williston with basically like little slides. Next to different conserved spaces, and then it can just zoom in on those different areas. We can take like a virtual tour of conserved space in Williston. We wouldn't let it touch on everything, but we could go to like, let's go to 5
Yeah,
examples.
I agree.
See some key stats.
I think that's a great idea because I'm sure not everybody knows all the places that are currently conserved. So an overall map, identifying them, and then, like you said, we'd go into a couple just to show them what they're like.
Yeah, okay. We have a good, I mean, what's up on the slide, I haven't finished committing my changes, but what's up on the slide, there's already a decent list and I've added to it while we've been talking, establishment of a land use chapter in the town, Allen Brook impaired waterway plan. Because that's when we started doing a lot of like riparian buffer plantings and stuff, so, and I would like to, I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to create content, so my goal is to first take a look at what's already on the website, what we already have from the past, and see if we can use it, and if we can't, or we want to synthesize it into something like a little tour on a map, then I would just pull in key facts and make hopefully like a photo or two from these different conserved spaces.
Reed, are you gonna discuss the kind of goal of 30% conservation at all or during this
So
time?
what we put in our recommendation that we send to the town manager this year is, I think, what I'll highlight, because I don't think by late November, we're gonna have really congealed is a bad word, really narrowed in on what we want to see in the next town plan for things like conservation direction. I think we'll have some ideas, but we're not gonna have like our chapter drafted, the different chapters drafted. So what I was planning to do is talk mostly about what we've proposed for the next fiscal year, with maybe a couple bullets about, here's some things that you should expect to be proposed to be in the next town plan, which will govern a longer stretch of time, like getting an official goal in there of a percentage of lands conserved, or kind of what's our direction for the town plan.
Sounds good.
Good, yeah.
All right, I'm just looking at the last slide, make sure there wasn't anything else, so, yeah, as far as advertising the event, we're gonna need to put together materials and communications. So I'll probably, if anybody is interested in helping to advertise, I guess just reach out to me and I'll let you know what we're doing. I think I need to meet with Marcy Cass to merge the visual with the plan of how to get it out through Front Porch Forum. If we can get something up on the website that we can link to, kind of like we did with No Mo May, having
Yeah.
like a page on the town website that says, this is the event, this is what it's gonna cover. Here's, you know, some of the materials that you can look at ahead of time. Then we can point people there. So that's kind of the direction I think that's gonna go. And subject matter experts, I'm gonna try to nail down location so that I can let everybody know to reserve their time. So that we can do that, and I will add reaching out to the Burt Church.
Sounds good. Thanks for
Yeah,
putting all that
that's awesome.
time and energy into this. All right, any other questions, comments, suggestions on the ERF outreach?
Thanks for doing it, Reed.
My pleasure.
Okay, 8:30, other business. FY 23 annual report. So we have, looking at that, we've got Gary on deck for the Glazer specific plan, Laura for the trapping, Reed on regulations for SWHA, and Kim for quiet connector. I know that Gary and Laura are familiar with it and know that we've asked them to work on that. Because Kim hasn't been here for, does Kim know that we've asked her to write this quiet connector piece? I feel like she wasn't there when we
She wasn't there when we
yeah.
volunteered her to do it. I guess if she reads the minutes very carefully, she'll know.
And supposing she doesn't, can we, Simon, do you mind sending her a
Yeah.
note? Just in case.
Was Kim the point of contact with Fellowship?
She does have a connection with Fellowship, and she was the generator of the concept of the quiet connector at the pond.
So yeah, just a reminder, like I guess Gary, that because I don't think you were here when we talked about this either. We talked about doing a 2-pager for the website and a 1-pager for the actual report. So we're after just a paragraph about the Glazer specific plan, and we said so. I think four paragraphs for the main items of work, which was Glazer, trapping, SWHA, and quiet connector. And then just some bullet points about like sort of other things we did.
And those, if we're gonna squeeze all that into one page, if we're gonna keep the rest of the bullets that are in there, those need to be short paragraphs.
Well,
right?
yeah, I mean, I think if we write it for a 2-pager, because this needs to have photos in it as well.
Okay, okay.
And then I can condense it down for a
Okay.
1-pager.
All right. Great. Anything else on, and so when do we want to have this done? We have a deadline for this thing?
So they have to have it printed for town meeting, and I think Sarah wants it at the beginning of February, so she can get it to print. So it'd be good to wrap it up in the next couple of meetings.
Okay, so December 6th.
Yep.
Is there a statement in here about the funding level of ERF?
No.
I would recommend that we, given the focus
Good idea.
of this committee for promoting awareness of the ERF and the benefits, that we should.
It'd be in the bulleted section at the bottom, just like a statement that the Conservation Commission for the first time recommended a target of 30 by 30, and in support of that, allocating 150K.
Well, that's our recommendation.
That's
That's the
Yeah, which-
recommendation.
which was funded at and was,
we have a bank account, I guess, is, you know, and sort of saying where that bank account ended at, you know. At the
Oh,
end of-
okay,
At the
yeah.
end of the year, it's sort of,
first time, okay, yeah, okay.
so you. I
I
would
thought it
say
was-
yes and,
Yes, yeah,
yes
and,
and,
yeah, and received $100,000, which brought the balance to blah, blah, blah. Something like that.
yeah, and, Terry can give us the latest on. Interest and accruals on the balance of that, but,
Right, it'll be what it was on June 30th.
right. So I think that would be, I think that's a good addition.
So wasn't it that Shirley put some of that money into CDs, like a short term and a longer term? So it might be a little more, but not much.
It won't be because she did that after June 30th.
Mhm.
So this is like, what was it on June 30th? Just to try and keep things
Yep.
less confusing
Yep.
than they could possibly be.
It was probably less because she didn't move it over till
Yeah, August time, I
much
think.
later, August sometime. Yeah.
Okay, great, good point, David, thank you. All right, anything else on annual report? All right, 2050 engagement events, we covered these a little bit already.
Yeah, we have. I just like everyone could choose one to sign up for if you haven't already. There's the online options as well. On Tuesday, November 14th. Be great to see everyone there. If you do want to be a table captain, that can help us out on some of the busier meetings. And really the objective there is just to try and keep the discussion going so that, you know, people don't spend all their time on transport and not cover energy or something like that. To make sure that people write down their sort of one thing.
Oh man, you don't want me as a table captain.
And then also just to try and make sure like everyone gets a chance to speak and things like that.
I can't help but notice that, looking at your sign up thing, you have, a significantly higher, greater number of people who have signed up for the Thursday evening events as opposed to the Saturday
Yeah.
events.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nonetheless, I think it's important to have those weekend events.
I do too,
You know.
yeah.
Some people work
It's a lot
evenings.
harder to give
Yeah,
on Saturday
yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah, oh, totally. You know, some families will work better for Thursday evenings and some will work better for
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon.
All right, so I think the message is take a look at that link, and please try and find a slot that works for you to attend and participate in one of these activities that will help inform the town planning effort. All right,
Now on to Beavers.
yeah, Allenbrook Beaver, what's going on with the Allenbrook Beaver? I noticed that I walked through there the other day, I noticed that you seem to have won the latest battle against the beaver, and our beaver wayside exhibit is not underwater anymore.
This is the Allenbrook, so over here is Keystone and this is the end of Southfield. They've got a minimum of 2 dams and their lodge is somewhere up here. So they're creating a beaver pond. It's quite a small beaver pond, so it goes up and down quickly. Like if we get, you know, with all the rains we had in August, it was really high and it was on the verge of being a couple inches below the footbridge. And then 2 weeks of dry weather and it had fallen by about 6 inches. So it goes up and down a lot because it's so small. So I met with Tyler Brown from Vermont Fish and Wildlife, just to talk through options.
Who owns that footbridge?
We do.
You do.
That's the one right off of is that the one with the wayside exhibit on it? That
Yeah,
footbridge?
it's the one with the explanatory board that says beavers were here and this is what they do. And now the beavers.
This is what they do,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
The water you're standing in right now.
So we've already pushed that puncheon that leads up to the bridge up by about 6 inches, which seems to be keeping it dry. Tyler met with us and he looked at it and he said, I don't think baffle's gonna work here. Because it's too windy and it's too channelized, it would just be too easy for the beavers to defeat them. And we also don't have it, like there's not, the beaver pond's too shallow. It'd be too easy for the beavers to dam up the cage with mud. And like defeat us, and then his point was, I think his point was, if we baffle these two dams, they'll just build another one, and then we'll baffle that, and then they'll build another one. You know, and where does this stop? You know, I think a lot of the work he does is much bigger beaver ponds, where it's effective. So we sort of agreed with him that we'd monitor it, see how it goes. You know, my thought is that late April, early May, it might inundate again. And we might have people trudging through a couple of inches of water. But that's what happens in nature trails, to be honest with you, is my view.
Yeah.
Is this a brand new pond? A brand new beaver occupation?
This summer.
Yeah, this summer we noticed it in August, so they started sometime prior to August.
So there's been a pond there for a while, upstream of the footbridge. So as you're looking at it on the map to the right of the footbridge, there's been a pond there for a while.
Yeah.
And then this summer, I don't know if it was, Junior Beaver or who, but another beaver decided to, expand their territory and build a smaller pond downstream. And that's the one that's causing the problems.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that this area is looks a little old now, because when we went down there, Tyler was like, wow, there's loads of food around here for the beavers. Like, I can see why they're set up. So he thinks they're probably focusing on harvesting the food at the moment. They're not building up their dams anymore. So they're getting ready for the winter.
So is this land town-owned land, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is part of Allenbrook School, that whole parcel?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Allenbrook Nature Trail.
Yeah, so if you walk out the Allenbrook Nature Trail, Terry, from the big bridge that we visited a year or so ago,
Oh, yeah, yep,
if you take that path, 100 yards or so, you'll hit this footbridge where the beavers are causing problems.
okay, good.
So I just want to give you the option to comment on it. I'm going to put it on our website, current conservation issues or something. But every 2 weeks, someone phones me up and goes, Simon, do you know there's a beaver here?
That's what I was gonna
yeah,
ask,
yeah,
how often
yeah.
you hear about it? I heard about it from my wife who was jogging through there and came home with soggy, wet running shoes.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
It's beaver.
Simon, I agree, it's a nature trail, that's what
It
happens.
is, I agree as well, except that and I don't know how many kids use it, but I know it's also a corridor for kids
Walking
to
to school.
to get to school from
Right.
like Pleasant
Of course.
Acres and
Yeah.
some of the other neighborhoods over there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, but I think just my limit, I'm not generally here when the kids, I'm here when the kids are walking to school or I'm on my way here. I think it gets used more when it's dry.
Yeah.
Cause it just the passing from some of the neighbors get really muddy.
Yeah, like the connectors.
Yeah,
for
the
neighborhoods.
connectors they get really muddy.
Okay,
And I wonder, in some ways, there's a synergy there, which is the beaver pond is going to be highest when the trails are all the muddiest. But I don't know. I don't really know how many kids use it. To be honest
a
with you.
beavers at work sign would be kind of fun.
Tell the kids
Well,
to,
you know how that's, yeah, go ahead, Terry.
just tell the kids to bring their boots.
They're muck boots, yeah,
Yeah, muck
or muck
boots
boots
to
if you're
walk
walking the
through.
trail, I don't know. We don't really want people on the trail if it's really muddy either, but I do think that if our approach is to monitor the situation and allow some nature to take place on a nature trail, then I would like to see at least something, some sort of signage, even if it's more temporary.
Yeah.
Like a laminated piece of paper that's attached to a stick that's hammered into the ground.
Beaver stick.
Just like it says, be aware from here on, it may be wet because there's beavers at work. And if you want to learn more about it, go to the town website and look for current conservation activities or something and or current conservation news,
Yep.
whatever we decide to call it.
Yep.
So that people can be like, oh, I don't need to call the town. They already know about this and I can go read about it.
And there's several places that I go walking and hiking that have that same situation where a certain time of year, they just have a sign that say, you know, beaver area coming up, so.
Yep. All right, I guess main takeaway is I don't hear anything about trapping yet, so we're not at that. point.
Well, I can prepare a motion for someone to the Conservation Commission to propose for that, if that's what you want to do.
Well, I don't know that we need to vote. I mean,
I don't
No, not for this, just in
Okay,
case you
not
want
for
to
this.
propose trapping.
Yeah.
Someone's putting their name to it, and that's not me.
know.
No.
That's kind of what I was wondering
Yeah.
where the end of this conversation would be if those.
I mean, we
it
are
doesn't seem like
way away from that. I don't
Yeah,
think we
okay.
should do that.
it's not major infrastructure at risk. It's
Yeah.
just people's feet getting wet
Yeah.
and seeing nature.
Fair enough, yeah. All right, so that gets any other business that we didn't get on the agenda?
Oh, this, Gary might be interested in this one. I'm sure you all are, which is, in my notes. Oh, yeah, so the state actually did some monitoring for Asian longhorn beetle up at Blueberry Swamp off Marshall Ave over the summer, using a funnel trap. These beetles burrow deep into hardwood trees.
Yep.
And the good news is we haven't got any Asian longhorn beetle in Wilson.
Are they in the state?
According to their website, the nearest outbreak is in central Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So I think the state are monitoring everywhere for them.
They eat maples, right?
Yeah,
They-
primarily.
We have a lot of food for them up here, so
Yeah,
makes me a little nervous.
that will, that will be a
Yeah.
problem.
You need hard frosts. And that's the.
Yeah, I know. That's where, continue to have, we've got the ash going and maybe there's gonna be a next one. That's why part of it is, being diligent about adding back species that have been here in the past and, like the American chestnut, for example. Because there's others leaving and we've got to maintain variety and diversity.
I just heard
Yeah.
that there's a beech leaf disease coming soon.
Right. I
And then
think
they-
it might even be in parts of southern Vermont. I don't know
Vermont,
for sure.
yep. And then the lanternfly, butterfly or moth, yep, that's on its way.
Is
to-
that here too?
It could be, they're monitoring for it.
Be here soon. We're just gonna end up with Phragmites.
That's all they can survive.
The average temperature last month was 3 degrees higher than previous. September.
Yeah, then normal, yeah. And then a couple months this summer were all-time records. At least July
Yeah.
was an all-time record. Last
Last week of September.
years or something, yeah.
Gary, at some point, could we get a tour of the plot that was put in at Abazima Nehanak, the test plot?
Sure, if you want to. I mean, I'm about to mow it for one last time this year, so
Yeah.
it'd probably be better to go after I do that, so
After
it's
you do
easier
that, yeah.
access.
I was just,
but-
I was wondering, it doesn't have to be this fall, it could be next year, but I was just thinking it'd be fun to do an event where.
Yeah,
people are invited
maybe
out to
even
come see.
if we wait till next summer, we could go to Catamount too and look at, because we're gonna be planting in there in the spring. There'll be, I think there's a total of 8 species, including American chestnut, that will be planting in there.
And this is in the area that was just logged.
Yes, in all 4 of the replications, including the Talcott Woods one.
And just to, while we're on that subject, just a reminder that Ethan, I think, is gonna walk this Saturday with the Vermont Land Trust from 1 to 3 at Catamount. I think this might be one of his last ones.
Good to know,
Thank
thank you.
Yes, thanks.
I've heard that the owls are very active in the newly cleared
Are
they?
zone, yeah.
I haven't been in there yet. My wife was in there and came back aghast. I said, I warned you, it's gonna look ugly. So-
Yeah.
Actually, I think it looks wonderful because there's so much light in there now. It used to be so dark and dank, and now it's just open and
I haven't had a chance to go back. I'll do that this weekend.
I don't think,
Alright.
I don't think they're totally finished with cleaning up from it, at least along the trails, but I could be wrong. Do you know, Terry?
Simon can speak to that probably better.
No, they haven't finished.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
All right, so next meeting is November 1st. Anybody know at this point whether or not they will be here, if they will not be here for next meeting?
I will not be here. I'm gonna be gone till November 19th, so I'll be gone.
All
for-
right, see you in December then, Terry.
That's right. Next one is December 6th.
I intend to be here, but I'm going to the Pink concert that night in Montreal, so I don't know what time we're leaving,
Fine.
so.
All right, okay, as far as I know, I should be here for that one.
Yeah.
As far as I know. Okay, sweet. Awesome, all right, thanks, everyone, have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Adjourned.
Bye.
Thanks for the scones.